Yo guys, Tom back again here with another video. This video we're going to talk about outsourcing, different types of outsourcing, kind of process you can follow, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, so let's dive straight in. Let's get started. So first off, what is outsourcing? I mean, obviously we have our fulfillment side of things in our marketing agencies where we got to do the ads, we got to run SEO out, we got to do all this different stuff. So how can we outsource that, right? How can we outsource that fulfillment piece? Right? So first I want to talk about the different types of outsourcing that there are. So there's a few different types here. And this is basically all the ways that you can outsource your fulfillment, right? So you've got white labeling. Now, white labeling is a good one. White labeling is basically the process of letting another agency do your work for you, right? But in your name, right? So the name of your agency is still used as like the person who does the work, but another company is actually doing the work on the back end, right? So SEO, for example, you could have another agency who's doing your SEO for your client, but they're doing it under your brand name. So that's exactly what white labeling is. Great way to do it. Very easy and effective. One thing with that is it can be quite expensive. I know a lot of white label people can start to charge quite a lot of money. But apart from that, it's a really good way to do things because, again, it's under your brand name. So you're building that brand reputation as well. And you just want to make sure that the person you are white labeling to, you can actually trust them. They actually do good work and get results for your clients because, again, they're using your brand name in there. So you want to make sure that they actually can get results, right? Then number two, we've got outsourcing. Now, this is the same thing as white labeling, except they're not using your brand name. So you're pretty much outsourcing the whole project to that other agency, right? And that is them doing all of the work, but they're doing it under their own name. And you're just like kind of a partner of that company, right? So you have to work out things with that. There's many different ways you can do outsourcing. You can, split the profits that you make with the client that you're working with that other agency that you're working with. Or you can just go and do it as a one-time payment or however you want to run that out. It depends on the service as well. And that is pretty much outsourcing. Very simple. And then we have the in-house team. Now, this is probably the most expensive out of everything. And this is having employees that are working for you within your business, right? So this could be virtual assistants. This could be people in your local area that work for you. It could be all of that, right? And these are people who help you with your fulfillment side of things. Again, in this video, we're talking about mainly fulfillment, which is the back end stuff, right? Not so much the sales and prospecting stuff, because again, that's a little bit different in terms of what you can do here with these things we've got here. But this video, we're just talking about fulfillment. So your in-house team for fulfillment, that would be people working on, your back end stuff. And then I've got two things on the side here, which is onshore and offshore. And those are basically the two options. And that kind of applies to kind of all three of these things, really. You can choose an onshore white labeling, outsourcing, or in-house team, or you can choose an offshore one, right? There's different options there. So those are some things to consider when choosing your fulfillment. Again, so like let's weigh up some of the benefits and pros and cons of these things. So white labeling, a great way to do it because you get your brand name in there. But again, it can be a little bit expensive. But another good thing with that is you have set prices with white labels usually. So you'll be able to know ahead of time how much things are going to cost, and you'll be prepared for that, right? With outsourcing can be great, but again, you don't get your reputation, your brand name in front of the client. So you can lose a little bit of, trust there in terms of that. And then you've also got things to worry about, like are they actually doing the work right? Like, is this person just going to cut me off? All of these questions come into play when you're outsourcing. So it can be a little bit difficult to manage outsourcing there. And then you've got your in-house team, which is the most expensive because if you have employees, especially if they're local, it's going to cost a lot of money. Now, virtual assistants are a super cheap alternative, but to find ones that are qualified in what you need them to do is a little bit tricky. I'm going to go over some things soon in the next few slides of how we can find these people for our in-house team and as well as white labeling and outsourcing. So I'll go over that in a sec, but yeah, in-house team could be pretty expensive if you do local. It can be pretty cheap if you do overseas and offshore with virtual assistants over in the Philippines or India. These places tend to be pretty cheap and you can get some pretty good, decent stuff for very cheap. And that's what I prefer to do is to keep it offshore. It lowers costs and you don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to pay employee benefits. None of this stuff comes into play when we have an offshore team. The only thing with that is there's a little bit, more risk in terms of not being a local company. You can get attacked for that in some ways, but other than that, it's a really good way to do it. And just virtual assistants is man, I love virtual assistants. Like the Filipino virtual assistants are amazing. They're such hard workers. They're really honest. They speak English. You know, it's a win-win all round, right? Because the low wage that you're paying them seems low to you, but to them that's a lot of money, right? So that's a really good thing about the virtual assistants in the Philippines as well. So yeah, that's pretty much your options. Like I feel like there's also a right place and right time for each of these and their use. You know, if there's a really complex project, you probably wouldn't want to trust your virtual assistant team with it, right? You probably want to white label it. And then if there was something that you don't want to have a say in at all, you could kind of just do the outsourcing way, where you're just kind of handing off the project. You don't want to have your brand name associated with it if something goes wrong. It's a kind of difficult project. You can just be like, okay, cool, I'll give it to outsourcing. So I'm still making money from it, but I'm not involved in it so much that my brand name's not at risk or anything like that, right? So I feel like there's a time and a place for each thing, and it's just about deciding that for yourself, right? So let's dive into how do we find the companies to white label to, the companies to outsource to, and how do we find our virtual assistants, our in-house team? How do we do this, right? This is one way I'm going to share with you how I like to do it. I'm going to give you some general info and then kind of tell you what I do. But again, this is like my opinions, my thoughts. Again, you don't have to take that on board. You can take on different things. You can look up different videos and do things your own way. But this is what I've found most helpful for me in finding virtual assistants and white labelers and all this stuff. So let's dive straight in. First thing, you got to start your search. So you can't just expect people to come to you magically. It doesn't work like that. You have to start searching, right? Now, you can use various websites like Upwork and all this stuff. Honestly, I like staying away from those just because they can tend to be higher priced than they actually are, and the quality of most of the workers in there isn't ideal. Especially Fiverr. Fiverr is pretty low quality workers. I mean, you'll find for some low ticket items like graphic design, logo design, that kind of stuff, you can find some pretty decent people on there. But for more complex projects like SEO, link building, all this stuff, it can be really difficult to find a good team from Fiverr or Upwork. So I tend to stay away from them totally, completely. I've used a couple of Upwork people before and they've been all right, especially for content writing. Like I said, lower ticket services tend to be really good off those platforms, but for higher ticket, more advanced stuff, you want to find the more advanced people who have some experience behind them and know what they're doing, right? So that's where you'll start your search, right? And now I like to do in Facebook groups. Facebook groups will probably get you the best people. You will be able to find white label agencies and outsourcing people and all of this stuff in Facebook groups and virtual assistants as well. That's where I find most of my virtual assistants. Again, there's a few Filipino websites you can use to search for those, but I prefer the Facebook groups because you can keep the conversation going on Messenger, which is just easier to keep conversation on Messenger, right? You're not having some weird chat box in Upwork or something where people aren't very responsive. Everyone's on Facebook, right? So you can find whatever you're looking for on Facebook, and that's what I tend to stick with. So again, it's just as simple as finding a Facebook group called, Filipino virtual assistants or virtual assistants Filipino or whatever, just search some names and you'll find some groups. There's tons out there. I'm in quite a few Filipino groups that have virtual assistants in them. So that's where I find most of my new stuff from. For white labeling, you want to go in more advanced groups that are specific to what you're looking for. So if you're looking for a Facebook ads expert, you would go into a Facebook ads group, and you just type a post in there, say, hey, I'm looking for a white labeler, do this, right? So now we move into being specific on what you're looking for. So we've found where we're going to look, right? In our Facebook groups, in our websites, on Upwork, whatever. Now we want to focus on being specific of what we're looking for, right? So what is the role? What do we want people to do? And we need to set these boundaries really, really, really clear right from the start, so there's no confusion with the person we're going to take on, and also with us, right? We don't want to create any friction there where we're having to do more than we bargained for or less than we bargained for, right? There has to be a balance there. So we have to know exactly what we're looking for, exactly what the requirements of the role are that we're looking for someone to do. And that's what we're going to specify when we make a post on Facebook or a post on Upwork or whatever. We want to specify these things, right? Very, very clearly, very clear and concise. So basically just saying exactly what you need people to do. What's the pay rate? When can they start? What are some of the tasks going to include? Just basic things like that, right? And just being as specific as you can. The more information you put on there, the better. What I like to get people to do as well is to get them to send, actually this is in the next section. So next section after that, now you'll get people reaching out to you once you've made your posts. Now what you want to do within your post, you can ask people to send you a message, or what I like to do is a audio message or a video message, right? Because if people are too lazy to send an audio message, it usually means you don't want to work with them. They're not the right person to work with, right? If they can't even send you a 1-minute audio clip, like that's pretty lazy already. So you don't want to work with people who can't even just do a simple task like that. So that's why I ask in most of my posts is just ask them to do a simple task, which is like, for a virtual assistant, it would be, hey, send me a resume and a 1-minute audio clip, right? Very simple. I just want to, the audio clip is basically just to confirm that they speak English, they know what they're talking about. And then the resume is just to see if they have any experience in the areas that I'm looking for. Otherwise, that's pretty much it, right? Very simple. For white labeling, it might be a little bit more advanced. You want to screen people a bit more harder. So you'd be like, hey, send some results, send some testimonials of people you've worked with, etc., right? For Facebook ads experts, you'd want to do that, right? You want to make sure they know what they're talking about. And that's pretty much that. So that is getting to know people better, right? And then you just want to have conversations with these people. Very simple. Have some conversations like this. That's why I like to keep things on Facebook, because you can just use Messenger. Everyone's on Facebook, man. Just have a conversation on Messenger. Hey, I'm looking to get this done, and ask them questions and see what this is and that is, right? And just get to know them a bit better, right? And then from there, you choose the best fits for the role, right? And that's pretty much how you build your team, right? It's very simple. Like, you don't want to overcomplicate things. Keep this nice, simple process. And again, you can hire someone to do this process for you in finding people, right? If you're constantly like taking more people on and scaling, this is something that's going to really benefit you, is hiring a hiring manager, right? Someone who does this process, who goes through Facebook groups, who looks for the best people, who does this application process, right? And they go through and find the best team for you, right? You can find someone who does that. And that's pretty much that. You're going to pick the best fits for the role, who you think are the best people, and then test them out, see how they go. And then from there, you see if they want to stay on long term, see if you want to keep them on long term, and then you make an agreement, right? You set the expectations. They start with the role. They start doing all the work. And you've successfully outsourced your fulfillment. Bam. Sounds so easy when you put it like this, but it can be a little bit of a nightmare finding the right people and searching. But again, it's just trial and error, man. It's a bit of trial and error. There are things you can do to skip some of that trial and error, but this process is pretty effective. And that is pretty much that. And then after that, oil the machine. Make it better, refine it, fix things that aren't working. If someone isn't working well in the company, scrap them, find someone new. Just keep things working smoothly. And then from there, you might have the question, well, if I've outsourced all of my fulfillment, where does that leave me? What should I do? How am I going to do this or that? All right. What does that leave you to do if everything else is outsourced? Well, there are a few things that I think are important that you should focus on as the business owner. But again, these are my opinions, so I'm no expert. I'm just sharing what I've found helpful and what other people have told me and what I've learned from other people. And that is that when you've outsourced most of your stuff, right, your team is an extension of you, right? They're an extension of you. They basically duplicate you and do the work that you that isn't moving the needle as much for the business, but is important, still important, right? So things like looking after customers and customer service, doing ads, doing SEO, doing all of the fulfillment stuff, like that's stuff that you don't really want to be involved with, right? You want to keep that outsourced so that your company can still grow and you're not being a roadblock to that stuff. So that's like the first thing, right? Now, what you do want to focus on is obviously outsourcing, having your 4 pieces of the puzzle outsourced, right? So you've got your prospecting, you've got your sales, you've got fulfillment, and you've got retention. If you can outsource those 4 pieces of the puzzle, then you're pretty much left with a pretty automated business, right? Now all you have to do is look over the system, refine bits and pieces, look at it objectively as a process. Okay, so from prospecting to retention, all the way through this process, where are things going wrong? Where are we losing clients? Where are we not gaining clients? Is it a problem in our prospecting? Is it a problem in our sales? And just constantly learning more. Take more courses, take on more coaches, spend more time refining this system and to get it squeaky clean, right? So then once this system's running on itself, you've got it all automated. It's a pretty passive business, right? And it just runs itself. Now you can focus on just building relationships in your business, just going out and talking to different business owners, talking to some of your clients, building connections, building relationships, getting referrals, all of this stuff, right? And you don't have to focus on the actual system of the business. You can focus on the stuff in the business that you want to focus on because you've refined it and it's running smoothly, right? So that's pretty much that, guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I mean, it's a very simple process if you make it simple. If you overcomplicate it, you're gonna have a hard time finding the right people. But just keep it dead simple. Again, just testing people out, like making some posts, being really specific on what you're looking for, testing a few people out, seeing if they can do what you've asked them to do, and then from there, just refine it, right? Refine it. Again, there's some retention tactics with keeping your staff as well. I won't go over that in this video, but there's a few extra things you can do, like, giving them bonuses, weekend pay and stuff like this. There's different things you can do to keep your staff more interested and active in your company. And it goes further than just like the surface level stuff. But I will do that in another video, I think, because that can be a pretty big topic. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you found this helpful. And again, as usual, if you enjoy this content, leave me a thank you note. I really appreciate it. That makes me wanting to keep doing this. So yeah, just leave me a thank you, guys. I appreciate all of you in this group, and we'll keep growing this, keep sharing value. And that is pretty much it. I will see you in the next one next week. Peace out. Woo!